Wow! It's not often I am surprised, but I was shocked when this came across my newsfeed. I had another video planned for this afternoon, and since it's related to women's college basketball, or what I call professional basketball at the women's level, we might get to it at the end of this video. If not, we'll get to it tomorrow, because the bigger story right now is Caitlin Clark deciding to forego her final year of eligibility at the professional level to become an entry-level dump diver in the WNBA dump. I will never begrudge anyone for making what they feel like is the best decision for themselves and their family. I'm happy for Caitlin Clark. I hope she will be successful in the WNBA. And I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I was certain that Caitlin Clark would be returning to Iowa next season, especially after Flau'jae Johnson came out this week and blasted the WNBA for not treating their players like professional athletes. I mean, seriously. Who wants to trade private jets for Spirit Airlines? Who wants to swap nights at the Four Seasons during road trips for nights in the Winnebago, where every time the driver takes a sharp turn, you fall out of your cot? More importantly, who would be willing to exchange almost $1 million a year for less than $75,000 a year? I don't know about you guys, but I want the salary that has 2 commas in the number. In most major cities in America, if you're making $75,000 a year, you're probably living paycheck to paycheck thanks to John Biden and his economy. Apparently, though, Caitlin Clark, she is ready to leave the fairy tale lifestyle that she's been living in college to enter the real world. It's official. The application has been submitted. Caitlin Clark has applied to become a rookie trash engineer in the WNBA dump. Now, initially, this is going to be a huge boost for the WNBA. For the first time in league history, the WNBA is going to have a real superstar. This league's been in existence for about 30 years now? There has never been a single superstar at the WNBA level. Seriously, can you name a WNBA legend? Well, KC, what about Cheryl Swoops? Cheryl Swoops? Employee number 1 in the dump? The original pooper swooper? Up until a few weeks ago, I had forgotten that Cheryl Swoops was still living in America. If she didn't fabricate stories about Katie Rue Clark and follow up her bullshit by claiming that black people can't be racist, I would have continued living my life without knowing of her existence. Outside of Bob Griner, most people could not name a single player right now in the WNBA. Over the last few years, this league has been more known for their woke shit fuckery than missed layups and airball dunks. When the WNBA Draft takes place this summer, with Caitlin Clark being the presumed number 1 pick in the draft, they are going to set record high ratings. Her first WNBA game, which will be heavily promoted by ESPN. Join us Friday night for the dump debut of Katie Rue Clark. Her first game in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark will smash the previous record for most watched game. Now, I have no idea what the audience size was for the most watched game in WNBA history. I spent a few minutes this afternoon looking for it, but I wasn't able to find it. If I had to guess, probably between 1.5 million viewers. If Caitlin Clark's first WNBA game is broadcast on ABC, I think she smashes that record. Question is, will she be able to sustain it? Make no mistake about it, there is going to be an unbelievable amount of pressure on Caitlin Clark to accomplish what no man or woman has done before in the WNBA. Well, Casey, don't you mean what no woman has done before? Well, I mean, last season, Bob Griner was advocating for men who aspire to be women to be allowed to play in the WNBA. And some of the women in the WNBA, they dress and act like dudes. So in the interest of considering their feelings and not offending anyone, I figured it was safer to say no man or woman. Either way, there's going to be unbelievable pressure on Caitlin Clark to save the dump. Going into her rookie season, she's going to be the only star in this league. Sure. There are some players in the WNBA who are somewhat known. Kelsey Plum, Aja Wilson. Yeah, that's about it. Caitlin Clark will be the only player in this league with mainstream recognition. She will be the only player who is a household name. Whether it's fair or not, it is going to be her responsibility to turn the dump into a palace. And when I say her responsibility, what I mean is that's going to be public perception. One of the reasons that Caitlin Clark is a huge star at Iowa right now, the team is winning. If Caitlin Clark was notching triple doubles and Iowa was unranked, no one would give a shit. She had a phenomenal season last year. Very few people knew who Caitlin Clark was at the time up until the women's tournament started in March. The mainstream attention peaked when she played Angel Reese in the national championship. Caitlin Clark is a superstar at Iowa because she's winning. Will she be able to win in the WNBA? The number one pick in the draft, it belongs to the Indiana Fever. Now, last year, they selected Aaliyah Boston with the number one pick. This franchise, they have not had a winning season in almost 10 years. 5 of the last 7 years, they couldn't reach double-digit wins. Basically, in a league filled with dumps, Indiana is the dump of dumps. What is going to happen to her drawing power if Caitlin Clark goes 13-27? What is going to happen if she gets to the WNBA and she's not an instant winner? Well, KC Wemby is struggling in San Antonio right now and he's a huge star! Oh, really? How many times have you seen the Spurs on national television this season? How many times have you seen the Spurs on ESPN, TNT, ABC? The NBA regular season's almost over, and Wemby has barely been a topic of national conversation. Why? Because the Spurs suck. They're not winning. Here's the thing, though. Victor Wembanyama, he has the luxury of being able to struggle during his rookie season. Right now, it's not his responsibility to carry the NBA. LeBron James is still playing. Steph Curry's making a late season push for the playoffs. Giannis, Jokic. The NBA is full of stars that can carry the league until Wemby is ready. Caitlin Clark doesn't have that same luxury. When she gets to the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, she's got to win immediately. If she doesn't, people will lose interest quickly. People aren't going to be tuning into the WNBA to watch pretend basketball. People are going to tune in to watch Caitlin Clark. Attention spans are short. People are not very patient. They're not going to be interested in watching Caitlin Clark if she has nothing to play for. Now, luckily for her, damn near 70% of the teams in the WNBA qualify to make the playoffs. Problem is, 5 of the 8 teams that qualified last season are in the same conference as Caitlin Clark if she gets drafted by Indiana. It doesn't take long for your drawing power to evaporate. When the Pelicans drafted Zion Williamson in 2019, he was the biggest star to come into the NBA since LeBron James. Zion was a star at 14 years old. Just like Caitlin Clark, the media was hyping Zion Williamson as the next face of the NBA. Fast forward 5 years later, Zion is barely mentioned by the national media. The only time they mention him is to criticize him over his weight. Now, a lot of that has to do with injuries, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Pelicans were struggling and they're a small market team. Caitlin Clark is not going to be drafted to Las Vegas or Los Angeles or New York City. She's probably going to be drafted to Indiana. Not exactly a media powerhouse. If she struggles and fans end up losing interest, the media will lose interest. It's going to be tough for Caitlin Clark. It's going to be tougher on her than I think she expects. I hope she succeeds. I know we have fun here on the channel making fun of the WNBA dump, but there's a huge difference between the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. I actually like Caitlin Clark. I mean, I want her to succeed, but I think the pressure is going to be unbelievable. She's not only going to be pressured to win, she's going to be pressured to take a league into the mainstream that has never had mainstream exposure, all while possibly dealing with jealousy and resentment from other WNBA players. You know what else is interesting about this, though? Now that Caitlin Clark is leaving, what's going to happen to women's college basketball? Their tournament is going to be huge this year. Well, Casey, don't you mean March Madness? No, I mean their tournament. March Madness is the tournament played by dudes with real beards. With Caitlin Clark announcing her departure, ratings for the women's tournament probably going to break records again. But what about next season? Who is going to be the draw next season in women's college basketball? Well, Casey, it's going to be Angel Reese. Yeah, maybe. If she decides to stay at LSU. Angel Reese has kind of faded into the background this season. A lot of that has to do with Caitlin Clark receiving the bulk of the mainstream media coverage. But if Angel Reese returns next season, she will be the biggest star in women's college basketball. But what happens when she leaves? If you look at ratings for women's college basketball, there's really only one team drawing huge numbers. Iowa. LSU drew 570,000 last weekend on ESPN. That's a decent number, but it's not what I would call great. Like I've said before, what's happening right now with Caitlin Clark and women's college basketball, this is a holy shit, once in a lifetime moment. We might never see this again. Caitlin Clark doesn't leave and there's just another star waiting to be created. Hell, they've been looking for a star in men's college basketball for the last 2 decades. Outside of Zion Williamson, men's basketball, they haven't had a mainstream star since hell, I don't know. I don't know who their last mainstream star was. Probably had to go back to the 90s or early 2000s. I think we are going to see women's college basketball return to their norm. Without the star power of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, what's the incentive for mainstream America to watch? I mean, they've been on national television for decades and you weren't watching before. When the star power is gone, what's going to draw you in? You tell me, does women's college basketball return to normal viewing levels once Caitlin Clark enters the WNBA? Also, do you think Caitlin Clark will be able to elevate the WNBA? Will she be able to make the league mainstream? I hope she does. As you guys know, I can't stand the WNBA, but I hope Caitlin Clark is successful. I hope she can make the league relevant. I just don't think she is going to have a lot of time to make it happen. If she struggles her rookie season, if her team fails to make the playoffs, I just don't know how she can keep people interested. The NBA's already established. They can go a couple of years without a face of the league and they'll be able to survive until the next one arrives. WNBA doesn't have that luxury. With Caitlin Clark, it's now or it's never. Will she be able to do the impossible? Can Caitlin Clark save the WNBA? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.